Well, welcome there to this week's episode of Grow Wealthy Grooming. I am your host, River Lee. I'm the founder of the Savvy Groomer, where we take you from being burnt out, broken to healthy, wealthy, and happy, building a grooming business on your terms. Now, if you're wondering, is this pre-recorded? It is, in fact, pre-recorded this week. You might be asking why. Well, that brings us right to today's topic. Today's topic is sometimes things just don't go to plan, right? And I am having one of those times where everything is just not quite lining up. Things are not bad, but there's just constant shifting and moving, and it's making me a little crazy, to be honest. And I thought this was a great lesson to talk to all of you guys about. So, my entire existence right now is up in the air. And it's been so frustrating because normally I like to have a plan. I like to have a well thought out, I don't want to say perfect plan, but I'm the kind of person, if this, then that, if this happens, then I'll do this, if this, then that. But sometimes things just don't go to plan. And there's really nothing that we can do about it except for reevaluate and move on. So for me, this started when I had finally made the decision to move to South Carolina. And I got an apartment. It was perfect until it wasn't. I was promised that the owner of the home would only be there on a very rare occasion because they traveled for work. So they might be there maybe one day a month. Well, that's not what ended up happening. He ended up moving his girlfriend in, and then she had his kid over a lot. And what I was promised didn't happen. And it made it really hard for me to do my work. And it really stressed me out. Now, she didn't stress me out, and the kid didn't stress me out, but planning a business where I'm on calls all day, where I need quiet to record, this was a big problem. And the only reason I had agreed to live with somebody is because we had basically completely separate areas and completely separate houses, right? There was no interaction at all. And it sounds really selfish, but that's kind of what I need for my business is I need a very private, quiet space. There's no way for me to do Savvy Groomer in a loud house with a young child or someone who's going to be there all day watching TV. I'm watching these very loud reality TVs, which are basically shows where people are yelling at each other all day. And when I explained to them, hey, I can hear this background noise, this isn't what we agreed to, it wasn't easy to figure out. So then what do you do, right? Then I've got to figure that out. And so I put a deposit. I was looking for my house anyway. So I put a deposit on this gorgeous townhouse. It was perfect. It was everything I wanted. And I really fell in love with this townhouse. And it was taking significantly longer to build than was promised. I was promised this house was going to be done before Thanksgiving. Well, the house was not finished in November, nor was it done in December, nor was it done in January, nor was it done in February. It was not officially done till March. And that became a problem. Long story short, I had had an independent inspector, and they had found an electrical issue. So here I am, right? And another thing happened in between then. I was having this really uncomfortable home life situation, and my sister found out she was 6 months pregnant. The father was not going to be in the picture. So she was going to need a lot of love support. And as somebody who had gone through a pregnancy on my own, and had raised my son for a long time by myself. My son's father and I split when we were pregnant, and I lived in my car, and there was a lot of trauma around that. How we talk about all this childhood trauma. So I had to make a decision. She could really use my help with preparing for this baby. She didn't have a lot of time to prepare. Not only that, she had found around Thanksgiving that she was going to have this baby. So that's right around the busy season for grooming. So I was like, you know what? My house was going to be done around Thanksgiving anyway. So I packed up all of my stuff and put it into storage. And I was like, when the house is done, I'll move everything into the house. And until then, I will stay at an Airbnb in Rhode Island and take care of my family. Because reevaluating your, what you at your core are about is very important. And for me, it was about taking care of my family. And I'm not going to lie, I really did not have any want to spend another cold winter. That's really not what I wanted at all. But my love and value for my family, I had to evaluate, okay, which do I care about more, right? And that was to take care of them, to make sure that she has a better pregnancy and that she felt safe and nurtured, and to help my family's grooming business survive, right? Because she hadn't had prenatal care and they didn't know how the pregnancy was going to go. There was a lot of moving pieces to that. So I was like, okay, I'm going to stay in Airbnb. I'm going to enjoy my time. I'm going to make it work. Well, fast forward to purchasing my home finally, my sister had her baby. They're pretty comfortable. I covered her maternity leave. So everything should be working out perfectly. Well, when I went to go buy my house, which I'm very attached to, especially being homeless more than once, you get very attached to homes. So we did an independent inspection. It came back that there was an electrical issue. There were some other minor things, but the electrical issue was the big thing. And they basically, the builders, told me I had two options: buy it as is, and they would fix it in theory later. But they didn't agree with the electrical issue that my inspector was finding. Now, my inspector was incredibly thorough. He put readings, and again, I don't know much about electricity, but I don't know if it's the voltage or whatever, but it kept going up and down. One of the bedrooms was completely wired wrong. It had outlets in the house going nowhere. It had just everything was all messed up electrically in the house. So I had to make a decision. Do I close on this house and accept that my electrical issues could potentially burn my house down and take the emotional liability of that if my cat passes away, or if my son is coming down to South Carolina and that were happening, or what would I do? And on the flip side, just the idea of having to potentially rip out all of my walls to make sure that the electrical is fixed. Because in theory, everyone's like, oh, well, you can just cut a small hole. Well, we didn't know the extent of the problems. And then I had talked to somebody else. They said, this is why when you're building a new house, we tell you before they patch everything up for you to inspect the wires. Now, part of me was very upset with myself because if I had been in South Carolina where I was, I would have seen these issues, right? I would have seen these things happening. Instead, by helping out my family, now I was in this new predicament. And long story short, they told me that if I did not close and take the house as is, that they were not only going to keep my deposit, which was well over $10,000. Basically, they were just going to sell it to somebody else for $30,000 more, which is exactly what they did. So I had to hire an attorney. Thankfully, I do have an attorney friend who was able to fight with them over this and get my money back. But it was really devastating. This house had everything I wanted. Had the right amount of bedrooms. I picked out the colors. I picked out I upgraded my stove. I upgraded my fridge. I had all of the IKEA furniture and all of the furniture I had pictured and planned, and I hadn't ordered yet, but it was mine. It was all mine. And it was so devastating. It was so devastating. And it was really hard for me to go, okay, I'm losing my home, this home that I've dreamed about forever, right? And then I've also lost this whole life I had planned, this life in South Carolina of, riding my bike into downtown and, having drinks downtown and having this very metropolitan life and not having the winter and having a 2-car garage. And I just had this whole vision of everything that I was going to do. Now, part of you is like, why am I getting so personal? Why am I explaining this to you? Because I bet you've had things like this happen to you in your life or in your business, right? You've picked out the space to open up your business and you've imagined where everything's going to go. And you've like already picked out the tile and you've done this and that, only to find out that the landlord gave the lease to somebody else, or only to find out the zoning's not going to let you do it. Right. Or maybe you've done it in your house and you're going to have it in your house. Or maybe you decide that you're going to get a grooming van only to find out that you're not qualifying for it, or you don't have a big enough down payment. We've all been through this buildup and buildup and buildup and then great loss. So what do? We roll with it. And it's not easy. And we pray or whatever it is that you do, meditate, manifest for a better resolution. And my dream is to have a house somewhere warm, and I've fallen in love with Greenville, South Carolina. Am I going to be there now? Not right now. Why? Because the market's crazy and I have to look at my fundamental values. And this, guys, is really, I know a lot of you guys decided not to opt for the business boot camp, and that's okay. The first run is always scary to try a new class. But a lot of the reason I created this class was because of everything I was going through. I had to reevaluate, does Savvy Groomer align with what I want long-term? And I had to help my mom, my sister, to make sure that their business, their grooming business, aligned with what they want long-term. I asked my sister, like, do you want to be grooming cats for a long time? Or is this just now to make a paycheck? What do you love about it? Can you earn enough? Can you earn enough to be a single mom? Because she's going to be a single mom for a long time. And that kills me because I've been there. My heart breaks for her and her baby. And this is my goal for you guys, is for you to make sure your business aligns for a long time, because then when things don't work out the way you want them to, it gives you another opportunity to say, hey, fundamentally, what is it that I valued? I wanted to get a bike to bike into downtown. I wanted to live in a place that was transient. That way I can have friendships with people from all over the world. I wanted to have a house that I can do business retreats in, or at least one-on-one in-person classes. I really want to be able to have you guys come to my place, be my guest. Let's go to the beach or go to the mountains and sit down and look at what you've done in the classes that I teach and say, okay, what's working, what's not, and have those conversations. This is what I looked for. And a good friend of mine, and I'm going to butcher this, she said to me, sometimes when we're drifting, and she uses a lot of water analogies, and she's like, when you're trying to, if you're in a raft, and you're going to be drifting towards an island, she says, sometimes you see the sticks and you think that they're the island, but they're just the stick. And so unfortunately, this dream house I had was my stick, right? Because it wasn't the right thing for me. I was hoping it was everything I wanted, but it wasn't the right time, or it wasn't the right thing. Something happened. And in the moment I was so devastated, I literally just was inconsolable for days. Like absolutely, like I was shut down. I just curled up in a ball. I watched TV. I don't watch a lot of TV, and just cried and ate cheese balls. I ate like an entire container of cheese balls. That's my bad food. I just cried because it also brought up all those old wounds. It brought up the feeling of someone ripping my home from me. I just kept crying. They took my home from me. And then good, bad, or indifferent, and I love that I can be vulnerable with you guys and, just being very honest. It sounds really messed up, but I was really upset that my mom was so kind to my sister, because she's such a different person now. And I love who she is now, and I honor who she is now, but she was not that person for me. I was so alone. And it was really hard to see my sister be so supportive and supported rather when I was not supported. And I love that they learned their lesson. They supported her. And I'm really sad that she's going to repeat a pattern that I've already done. So there were a lot of emotions that I had to work through. And I know for you, if things don't go to plan, there's a lot of emotions. And sometimes it's just digging up old wounds, whether they're childhood wounds or they're just wounds from other painful experiences, right? Because that little shadow side in your head, mine said to me, why is she more lovable than you? Why did she get to be supported? Why do they love her more than they love you? And that's bullshit. But in that moment, that's what my heart was saying, right? And that hurts. And I'm okay that it hurt, because it allowed me to mend those feelings, right? Because that's not the reality. It's just they had to learn a lesson. And then they were able to heal, because I'm sure my mom is mortified that she was not supportive of me when I was pregnant. And now here's her chance to redeem herself. Sometimes things work out that way. Sometimes our pain is someone else's lesson or ability to, I don't want to say, reprieve themselves, but, my mom was able to right a wrong. That wrong was not righted with me, but it was righted. And I'm not okay with that in the sense that I shouldn't have been hurt in the first place. But, she proved she's a different person. And I proved that I can be supportive even when I hurt. And with the house, I said to myself, okay, this is not the end. I'm going to buy land and I'm going to buy something custom. And when when this market calms down, I'm going to build a custom thing where I can do these amazing retreats, right? I'm going to be able to do all of that. And it sucks sometimes when things don't go to plan and they take longer, because I want it now. I wanted it in November. But now this dream I had is pushed further, right? And sometimes that's what's going to happen. And it sucks and it hurts and it's annoying. All those feelings, right? Maybe, again, you plan on going mobile and you can't. Or maybe you're going to have a grooming salon in your house and now you can't. Or maybe you're going to hire employees, but there's all these obstacles in front of you. Or maybe you did hire employees and then they all quit, or you realized how overwhelming it can be. Maybe it's something in your business that just didn't go to plan and it sucks. For me, that dream of being in South Carolina, in Greenville, in that warm area, and it's a great area. It's where I want to be. But until then, I'm going to be okay. I ended up finding a place that I can do mini retreats. I found a place in Newport, Rhode Island, which is one of my favorite places on the planet. If you ever seen The Gilded Age on HBO, that's where I am. I am less than a mile from all those famous mansions. I am walking distance to Thames Street. I'm walking distance to Broadway. These are where all those shops are. I can walk to probably 30 restaurants. I can take my little bike out and go ride by the ocean. I'm going to buy me a little scooter and I'm going to scoot to the beach in the morning and watch the waves. I found an impossible place. I just put it out to God and the universe. I said, okay, this is what I want. I want a place big enough and that I can have these meetings of the mind, that I can have people come and we can pour over their information and sit at the kitchen table, having a cup of coffee and look at them, and they can come and write it off as a vacation, and see a new area and have fun. It's a blessing, but it came from her. And it's not exactly what I wanted, but ultimately it worked out. I have a year to find property and build, or I can figure it out from there. Because sometimes things don't go to plan. And sometimes they work out better. And sometimes they're not quite what we want, but they'll do for now. And that's kind of where I'm at. I am very blessed to have found the place I did. And it really fell into my lap. Ironically, the owner of this townhouse in Newport is the cousin of a famous groomer. And that is the reason he gave it to me, is because he grew up knowing his cousin who was a groomer. And it's just so interesting how the universe or God brings things together, right? It's one of those things that you're like, okay, we'll try this, I guess. And that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to try this out. And if it doesn't work, I'm just going to pivot, just like you're going to do. If things are not working out, they get better. And it sucks to say that because I wanted my house in Greenville. I still want my house in Greenville. All I wanted them to do was fix it. And I wanted to move all my stuff in. And I just want it so bad. And it hurts so much. But ultimately, this aligns more with my vision for now. I'm going to be here for my sister, for her baby, and support their business. My son is going to be able to, instead of just visiting me and me visiting him, my plan was to come down once a month for about 4 to 5 days. Now I'm going to have him 50-50. And part of me was kind of excited about being selfish and putting myself first, but kind of still am. And it's a constant shifting. And for you, what is constantly shifting? And I hope my vulnerability does not come off as me preaching. My goal for you guys is to hear my raw truth, as it's not pretty. It's not pretty. It's really not. It's embarrassing. It's embarrassing. I feel like Murphy's Law in a person suit. I don't like that. I don't like that I moved everything I owned down to South Carolina. I made a plan. I had everything working. And then I felt like it was ripped from me. But there's a plan. I don't know what that plan is. And when I make it my plan, I have to accept when things don't go to plan, because things are meant to be the way they're meant to be. And you don't have to believe that. I believe that. And I think sometimes I have to believe that, because otherwise I would go crazy, I spent 2 days in a truck driving back with all of my stuff. And it was really emotionally devastating, but I'm really okay, because I know I'm going to have the things that I've really been called to do. Savvy Groomer is going to have a place where we can invite people to do these things. I'm going to be able to groom in the cat van if I want to, right? That's amazing. I'm going to watch my nephew grow up a little bit. When I left, my sister was never going to have kids. And now she's got a baby and she's on her own. So that's where you always have to ask yourself, is the plan I have aligned? And make sure your business is aligned. My business is more aligned now than it was a year ago. Because as I grow classes, they're all about what I've gone through, and I feel like I've mastered, or at least I've learned the lesson. And now I can share it with you. So that is today's topic. And again, I hope it doesn't come off preachy. I hope it doesn't come off whiny. My goal is for me to share my vulnerability, my realness, my genuineness, so that you can hear it. And ultimately, you can take that knowledge and evaluate what you're going through. No one's perfect. And me less so than many, many people. All right, guys, so that is today's topic, all about sometimes things just don't go to plan. Don't be hard on yourself. Don't be mean to yourself. Just say, and it's hard. It was really hard for me in the moment to say, okay, not getting this house is a blessing, not a curse. It is not what I wanted to hear. But, and don't you hate that? You're like, ugh. It was a blessing and not a curse. And I can always pick up later where I left off, and the same thing when I sold my cat grooming business. I went through the same emotional regret. And one thing that got me through is you can always just buy another grooming van. And that's the truth. Sometimes things don't go the way we want them to, and it's not meant for us now, or it was never meant for us in the first place. And I say that as someone who's been single in July for 4 years. I want love and I want marriage and I want more children, but it's not meant for me right now. The Savvy Groomer is exploding, but I'm not going to every trade show. Why? Because it's not meant for me yet. But next year, fingers crossed, it will be. I really believe that. You don't have to believe that. And I'd love to hear your input. Well, thank you guys so much for being here. I will see you next week. As always, happy grooming, guys.